The ultimate power of a green piece of paper to understand. Why a simple green piece of paper printed with the faces of long gone American presidents wields the ultimate power to dictate the flow of every single drop of oil on Earth. We have to turn back the wheel of history. We need to go back to a shocking summer night in 1971. Imagine the world before that year. The global financial system operated under a very straightforward, fair play set of rules known as the Bretton Woods system. Under this agreement, the US dollar was entirely backed by physical gold. Any nation holding US dollars could confidently knock on the doors of America's gold vaults and demand an exchange at a fixed, guaranteed rate, $35 for 1 ounce of gold. Because of this good-as-gold promise, the entire world happily used the US dollar as the universal currency for global trade. But by the 1960s and 70s, America found itself bogged down in the Vietnam War and engaging in massive, reckless public spending. They were printing money with reckless abandon, printing far more dollars than they had gold in their vaults to back up leading European nations. Particularly France started getting suspicious. They began aggressively sending ships full of dollars across the Atlantic, demanding their gold in return. The United States was suddenly staring down the barrel of completely depleting its national gold reserves. The Nixon shock, the day the dollar became paper, and so, on August 15th, 1971, President Richard Nixon went on national television and unilaterally announced a decision that would send shockwaves across the globe. The United States was officially closing the gold window. The US dollar could no longer be exchanged for gold. From that exact second onward, the dollar was just a piece of paper. Its value was no longer tied to a precious metal, but entirely dependent on faith in the US government. This decision threw the global financial system into absolute chaos. The dollar plummeted in value. America's elite were in a panic. They knew that if they didn't quickly find something tangible, essential, and globally demanded to peg the dollar to, American hegemony would collapse entirely. The masterstroke, birth of the Petrodollar in 1973. A war erupted in the Middle East in retaliation for US support of Israel. Oil exporting countries, known as OPEC, imposed a devastating oil embargo. The price of oil skyrocketed by 4 times in just a matter of months. The endless lines of cars waiting for gas across America became a haunting symbol of the era. But right in the middle of this paralyzing crisis, visionary US strategists saw the opportunity of a lifetime. They realized a fundamental truth: gold just sits in a vault. But oil is the blood of the global economy. Any nation that wanted to industrialize, drive cars, fly planes, or run factories desperately needed oil. If the United States could force the entire world to buy oil exclusively using US dollars, the whole world would automatically be forced to crave America's green paper. And so, in July 1974, the newly appointed US Treasury Secretary, William Simon, embarked on a highly classified flight to Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. He carried with him a proposal that would quietly rewire the power structure of the world for the next half-century. America made the Saudi royal family an offer they simply couldn't refuse. The US promised to provide the most advanced military weapons, an impenetrable security shield, and guaranteed survival for the House of Saud against any enemy in the highly volatile Middle East. In exchange, America only asked for 2 things: exclusive currency From that day forward, Saudi Arabia would price and sell its oil exclusively in US dollars. No other currency would be accepted. The recycling loop. The massive mountains of US dollars Saudi Arabia earned from selling oil had to be reinvested directly into US government bonds, or pumped into Wall Street's financial markets. As the undeniable leader of OPEC, Saudi Arabia's nod of approval triggered a domino effect. The rest of the oil-exporting nations quickly followed suit. The petrodollar system was officially born. The magic loop, an exorbitant privilege this was, without exaggeration. The greatest and most ruthless economic magic trick in human history. Look at how smoothly and flawlessly this loop operates. Take economic powerhouses like Germany and Japan. They are top-tier industrial nations, exporting cars and machinery, but they have virtually no domestic oil reserves. For a Toyota or Volkswagen factory to keep the lights on, they have to buy oil from the Middle East. But Saudi Arabia only accepts dollars. So, what must Japan and Germany do? They are forced to produce high-quality goods, ship them to America, and sell them just to acquire US dollars. Once they have those greenbacks, they send them to the Middle East to buy oil. Saudi Arabia, now sitting on billions of dollars, can't possibly spend it all domestically. So, as agreed, they send those dollars right back to America by buying us. Treasury bonds essentially loaning the money back to the US government. Look at the ultimate result of this cycle. The United States gets to print endless green pieces of paper to buy cheap, high-quality goods from around the world. They get all the oil they need, and best of all, the very money they just printed loops right back into their own treasury through foreign investments. Thanks to this massive, stable river of capital, the US government could borrow money at incredibly low interest rates to fund wars, pay its military, build infrastructure, and run massive deficits, all without the fear of hyperinflation. Former French finance minister Valéry Giscard d'Estaing bitterly, yet accurately, dubbed this America's exorbitant privilege. The whole world was breaking its back, digging up resources and manufacturing goods, trading it all for paper printed by America, and then obediently handing that paper right back to the US government for safekeeping. You might wonder, why didn't the world choose the British pound or the Japanese yen back then? The answer lies in the sheer, unmatched scale of America's financial infrastructure. If you make $1 billion a day selling oil, you can't stuff it under a mattress. You need a safe, transparent, highly liquid market. Wall Street is a deep ocean. You can drop hundreds of billions into it, or pull it out in the blink of an eye without crashing the system. Nobody else had that capacity. The shift, weaponization and de-dollarization, these petrodollar dominants, created a unipolar world order, where America wrote the rules. But no party lasts forever. A quick reality check. Recently, a rumor went viral on the internet, claiming that a 50-year petrodollar treaty officially expired in June 2024, and Saudi Arabia refused to renew it. While it makes for a great headline, that specific expiration date is actually a myth. There was never a formal document signed in 1974 with a 50-year countdown. However, the underlying truth behind that rumor is very real, and it is sending massive shockwaves through the global financial system. Saudi Arabia is no longer strictly binding itself to the dollar, and the world is actively trying to break free. To understand why the world wants out, we have to look at how America has used its currency. Over the decades, the US hasn't just used the dollar as a tool for trade. They've weaponized it. They turned the dollar into an economic weapon of mass destruction. Any nation that crosses the United States risks being financially obliterated. By controlling the international payment system, America can freeze assets, block transactions, and confiscate foreign reserves. The boiling point was reached in 2022, following the outbreak of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. The US and its Western allies didn't hesitate to freeze roughly $300 billion of the Russian central bank's foreign reserves, kicking Russian banks out of the SWIFT international payment system. This was a deafening wake-up call for the rest of the world. Leaders in Beijing, New Delhi, and Riyadh felt a cold chill run down their spines as they realized a terrifying truth. If America can do this to a nuclear-armed superpower like Russia, no one is safe. This fear ignited a global movement called de-dollarization. What happens if the petrodollar falls? If oil is no longer exclusively bought with dollars, the first and most devastating blow will land squarely on the American economy. Remember that magic loop, when nations no longer need to hoard mountains of US dollars to buy energy. The artificial, global demand for the greenback will evaporate. Countries will start dumping their dollar reserves. Trillions of dollars currently floating around the globe will come flooding back to US shores. It's basic economics. When the money supply explodes but goods remain the same, hyperinflation ignites. America would face a price crisis worse than anything in its history. Furthermore, the cheap foreign capital that funds US Treasury bonds would dry up. To borrow the money required to maintain its massive welfare state and fund its 800 military bases around the world, the US would be forced to hike interest rates to the sky. Sky-high rates would strangle businesses, crash the housing market, vaporize wealth on Wall Street, and plunge the US into a deep, prolonged recession. The exorbitant privilege of printing prosperity would be dead, dragging America's geopolitical dominance down with it. The challenges emerge, but let's be clear, breaking up with the dollar isn't a walk in the park for the rest of the world either. It's a chaotic, risky adventure. As the petrodollar cracks, global finance is fracturing. We already saw a glimpse of this when Russia sold oil to India and accepted Indian rupees. It sounded like a great blow to American arrogance, until reality hit. Russia ended up sitting on billions of rupees, but couldn't spend them because India doesn't export the high-tech machinery Russia needs. The money was stuck, losing value, forcing them to scramble for other currencies like the UAE dirham, the Chinese yuan. This proves how incredibly inconvenient global trade is without a universal standard. Businesses face wildly fluctuating exchange rates, high conversion fees, and incredibly complex contracts. Yet challenges are stepping up. China is the most formidable, aggressively pushing the petroleum. Their pitch is simple. We are the factory of the world and the biggest importer of oil. Sell us oil in yuan, and you can use that exact same currency to buy everything you need from us infrastructure. Electric vehicles, 5G networks. Coupled with a new digital yuan, China is trying to build a closed-loop payment system entirely off the US radar. Meanwhile, the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and its new Middle Eastern members are furiously researching alternative payment networks perhaps. Even a new currency backed by gold and a basket of commodities. Conclusion: the weakening of the petrodollar isn't an overnight event. It is a slow, tectonic shift that is happening right now. While dethroning the US dollar completely tomorrow is unlikely, the golden era of America's unchecked financial empire is undoubtedly facing its greatest existential threat. If you found this deep dive into the hidden mechanics of global power fascinating, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more.